The air in the Oval Office hung thick with the scent of polished oak and fresh coffee, steam curling from a half-empty mug on the resolute desk. President Donald Trump leaned back in his leather chair, his fingers drumming a staccato rhythm on the armrest. Across from him sat Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Tie loosened, a tablet glowing in his lap. The room's heavy curtains muffled the distant hum of Washington traffic, creating a cocoon of isolation. Trump's eyes narrowed at the screen before him. "This isn't a trade deal, Tony. It's war. She thinks he can flood our servers with junk data and walk away. Not on my watch." He jabbed a finger at the live feed from the Situation Room, where analysts hunched over monitors read alerts flashing like warning lights on a stalled runway. Blinken shifted, his voice measured but edged with urgency. "Mr. President, the attack hit Cloudflare's core nodes at 2:47 p.m. Eastern, over 1.2 million sites, down in under 5 minutes. That's not just downtime, it's 40% of global internet traffic crippled. Chinese IPs are the source, but they're routing through proxies in Singapore and Brazil." She's denying it, of course. The president snorted, standing abruptly. His shadow stretched across the carpet as he paced to the window, parting the curtains just enough to let in a sliver of late afternoon sun. Outside, the south lawn lay still, Secret Service agents patrolling like ghosts. Denying? He's got Huawei rigs embedded in every backbone from Shanghai to Silicon Valley, billions in subsidies propping up their cyber units. We've got audits showing $15 billion funneled to state hackers last year alone. And now this? Cloudflare's stock plunged 22% in the first hour. Trillions in market value evaporated. Blinken tapped his tablet, pulling up a classified briefing. The numbers are worse. At 2.5 terabits per second, 5 times the 2022 peaks. We've lost control of data flows to the West Coast. Tech firms are screaming. Amazon Web Services diverted 300 petabytes to backups, but it's chaos. If this escalates, we're talking supply chain halts, factories idle, hospitals offline. 500,000 users in the EU alone reported blackouts. Trump turned, his face a mask of controlled fury. He crossed the room in 3 strides, slamming a hand on the desk. The mug rattled, coffee sloshing over the rim. "She wants to test me. Fine, but we're not playing defense. Get Pompeo on the line. He's got the intel on their backdoor exploits, and alert the NSC. This clash ends with us owning the narrative." A knock echoed from the door, sharp and insistent. An aide slipped in, folder clutched tight. "Sir, incoming from Beijing. Ambassadors requesting an emergency call. And, there's chatter. Xi's inner circle is mobilizing. They say it's retaliation for our chip tariffs." Trump waved the aide off, his mind already racing. The room fell silent again, save for the tick of a grandfather clock in the corner. Blinken watched him, waiting. If we hit back now, it could spiral. Sanctions on their rare earth exports, that's 80% of our EV battery supply, or cyber countermeasures, but Xi's prepared. He's got 1.4 billion firewalls behind him. The president sat, exhaling slowly. His pen clicked open and shut, a mechanical heartbeat in the tension. "Prepared? I've got the Pentagon, the Five Eyes, and every CEO from California begging for action. Tell Xi's man we're listening, but make it clear. One more bite, and we unplug their whole grid." Blinken nodded, typing swiftly. Outside, the aide's footsteps faded down the hall. Trump stared at the feed where Cloudflare's recovery metrics ticked upward, barely 15% restored. The clash had barely begun, but the stakes were clear. Tech empires trembling, economies on the brink. In the White House basement, far below the polished surfaces, a secure line crackled to life. An analyst's voice cut through the static. "Mr. President, we've traced a secondary wave. It's not just Cloudflare. Targets include the New York Stock Exchange servers, incoming in 60 seconds. Trump's grip tightened on the phone. "Lock it down, now." But as the first alarms blared, a deeper dread settled in. Xi's move wasn't random. It was the opening gambit in a shadow war that could rewrite the digital world order. The dim glow of emergency lights bathed the Situation Room in a sterile red hue, casting long shadows across the conference table littered with coffee cups and encrypted laptops. President Donald Trump stood at the head, sleeves rolled up, his tie discarded like a shed skin. Around him, National Security Advisor Mike Pompeo hunched over a console, his face illuminated by scrolling code. The air hummed with the low whine of cooling fans, thick with the acrid tang of overheated electronics. "Status!" Trump barked, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. An analyst, sweat beading on her forehead, swiveled her chair. "NYSE servers holding at 92% capacity, sir. We rerouted through redundant nodes in Virginia, averted the crash by 45 seconds. But the probe? It's sophisticated. Embedded malware mimicking legitimate traffic. Origin points in Shenzhen, masked as VPNs from India." Pompeo leaned forward, tapping a secure tablet. "This is an amateur hour, Mr. President. We've pulled logs." The initial Cloudflare hit used 1.8 million botnets coordinated via IoT devices in the US. Smart fridges, cameras, the works. Xi's Cyber Command poured $2.3 billion into this op last quarter alone, per our intercepts. Retaliation for the 25% tariffs on their semiconductors. But look here. He slid the device across. A graph spiked, projected losses at $47 billion for US tech firms by dawn, with 12 million users still offline globally. Trump's jaw tightened. He paced the room's edge, boots thudding softly on the carpet. The walls lined with screens displaying real-time maps flickered with alerts, red dots pulsing over Pacific cables. "She's playing chess while we're fixing checkers." Cloudflare's CEO just called their Atlanta data centers at 110% load, risking total meltdown. If we don't counter, Wall Street opens to a bloodbath. Dow futures already down 8%. A door hissed open, admitting Secretary Blinken, his coat damp from the evening. Leather dossier stamped with the State Department's eagle. Beijing's stonewalling. Their foreign minister claims it's rogue actors beat BC site about gay, but we've got satellite imagery of PLA trucks unloading gear at a Huawei facility in Guangzhou. 500 personnel mobilized overnight. And the demands. Lift the export controls on AI chips, or the next wave targets power grids. California's already seeing brownouts, 1.2 gigawatts diverted to stabilize. The room tensed. Pompeo exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. "You say rogue, Tony? I show you orders signed by Xi himself. Our assets in the Politburo confirm it. This is his green light. We've got 72 hours before they pivot to financial systems. Swift network, maybe even Fed reserves. Trillions at stake." Trump stopped pacing, slamming the dossier open. Pages rustled. Charts of submarine cables, 60% US-owned, but vulnerable to Chinese undersea taps. "If they touch our banks, it's not trade, it's theft on a scale that ends empires. Get me options, sanctions, cyber pushback. I want their rare earth mines idled, their exports choked at 15% capacity." Blinken hesitated, glancing at the analysts. One cleared his throat. "Sir, escalation risks blowback. China's holding $800 billion in US treasuries. They dump that, interest rates spike 3 points overnight. Mortgages double for 40 million Americans." The president waved it off, his eyes locking on Pompeo. "Risks? We've got the Quad, Australia, Japan, India lining up. Their navies can blockade the South China Sea routes, cut off 70% of their oil imports. But first, we expose this. Leak the intercepts to the press. Let the world see Xi's hand." Pompeo nodded, already dialing a secure line. The room buzzed anew, voices overlapping in clipped urgency. Trump sank into a chair, the leather creaking under his weight. A pen rolled from the table, clattering to the floor, unnoticed amid the storm. Hours ticked by in the underground bunker, the outside world oblivious. Blinken reviewed the dossier again, his finger tracing a line. Projected victims. 15,000 jobs lost in Silicon Valley by week's end, supply chains for 200,000 EVs halted. The clash was public now, headlines screaming from every screen. Cyber Pearl Harbor? But in the shadows, Xi's team plotted deeper cuts. As midnight approached, a new alert chimed. Soft, insistent. Pompeo froze, staring at his console. "Mr. President, we've got a breach. Not external, internal. Someone in the NSC just exfiltrated the tariff response files to an offshore server." Trump's face hardened, the room plunging into heavy silence. The betrayal wasn't from Beijing, it was from within. and it threatened to unravel everything before. The first shot fired back. The fluorescent hum overhead cast a harsh pallor over the NSC briefing room, buried deep in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. President Donald Trump sat rigid at the Oval table, his knuckles white around a glass of water that had long gone flat. Flanking him, Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines pored over a stack of printouts, her glasses perched low on her nose. The air conditioner wheezed, struggling against the warmth of too many bodies, crammed into the space. Analysts, cyber experts, a lone FBI liaison nursing a black coffee. "Talk to me," Trump demanded, his voice low but laced with steel. Haines slid a folder forward, its edges frayed from hasty handling. "The breach traces to a mid-level analyst, sir. Name's Elena Vasquez, cleared for tariff intel last year. She uploaded 2.4 gigabytes to a server in the Cayman Islands at 11:52 p.m., includes our countermeasures, the rare earth sanction, blueprint, projected to slash China's EV output by 35% in 6 months. Trump's eyes scanned the dossier. Timestamps, IP logs, a grainy photo of Vasquez at her desk. How? Our firewalls are Fort Knox. An analyst across the table cleared his throat, tapping a keyboard. Social engineering, Mr. President. Phishing email from a fake State Department alias. She clicked, and it deployed a keylogger. But the money trail? $1.2 million wired from a shell company linked to ByteDance, China's TikTok arm. She's en route to Dulles now, passport in hand. The room stirred, chairs scraping on linoleum. Pompeo, entering from a side door, dropped a USB drive onto the table with a clack. Worse than that, we've decrypted her comms. She's Politburo fed her specifics. The Cloudflare attack's backbone. 200 servers in Guangdong, subsidized at $4.7 billion annually by the CCP. She was their mole, feeding back our recovery protocols. Result? Their next wave just launched, targeting Verizon's 5G backbone. 28 million US users could go dark by morning. Trump leaned back, the chair groaning. He exhaled sharply, the sound echoing in the brief pause. Outside, rain pattered against reinforced windows, blurring the view of Pennsylvania Avenue. Victims piling up. Cloudflare's outage already cost $19 billion in lost e-commerce. Amazon alone down $8.2 billion. Now this, if Verizon folds its hospitals, air traffic control, 2,500 flights grounded already from ancillary glitches. Haines interjected, her tone clipped. "You say mole, Mike? I show evidence. Her bank records match 17 other leaks since 2023. But she's not stopping. Satellite feeds confirm. PLA cyber units in Wuhan activated 100 operators. They're prepping for the kill shot, disrupting the Federal Reserve's wire transfers. Trillions in motion daily. One glitch, and the economy seizes like a bad engine. The president stood, pacing the room's perimeter, his shadow flickering under the lights. A pen clicked in Pompeo's hand, once, twice, before he pocketed it. We move now. FBI's got a warrant, they're intercepting her at the airport, but the docs she leaked, Beijing's already twisting them, state media is blasting US aggression, claiming our tariffs provoked the crash, hiding $12 billion in American subsidies to cloud providers that undercut their firms. Blinken, dialing in via secure video from Foggy Bottom, appeared on the wall screen, his face taut. International ripples, sir. EU's commissioner just called. Their grids are flickering from spillover DDoS. 40% of Frankfurt's exchange traffic rerouted. If we expose the mole, it validates Xi's narrative. American paranoia. But hold back and we lose the high ground. Demands incoming. Roll back chip bans or they hit NATO servers next. Trump halted, staring at the screen. The room fell into weighted silence, broken only by the analysts typing. If they touch our allies, it's not bilateral, it's global war. Leak the mole's confession, let the world see the strings, and prep the counter. Operation Firewall, our hackers mirror their botnets, aim for their great firewall, shut down WeChat for 500 million users, watch the chaos. Pompeo nodded, but his eyes flicked to his phone. A vibration. Ignored. Haines gathered the folder, her movements precise. Interception in progress. Vasquez boarded a flight to Vancouver, ETA 90 minutes. But sir, chatter suggests she's not alone. A handler in the shadows. As the briefing dragged into the early hours, the rain intensified, drumming like urgent fingers. The balance tipped, U.S. intel compromised, public outrage brewing with each ticking outage minute, now at 22 hours, affecting 45 million worldwide. Trump's team fortified their lines, but the mole's escape loomed as the first real fracture. In the dim glow of the monitors, Pompeo's phone lit up again, an encrypted text from an unknown source. "She's clean. The real leak is higher. Watch your back." The words hung in the air like smoke, igniting a fire that could consume the inner circle from within. The sterile chill of the FBI's Hoover Building interrogation room seeped through the concrete walls where a single bulb swung faintly overhead, casting erratic shadows on the scuffed metal table. President Donald Trump watched via a secure feed from the White House, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens in the Oval Office annex. Beside him, FBI Director Christopher Wray adjusted his glasses, a tablet balanced on his knee. The air in the annex hummed with the soft whir of servers, laced with the faint bitter scent of stale donuts from an earlier briefing. On the feed, Elena Vasquez sat handcuffed, her posture slumped but eyes darting. Across from her, Special Agent Laura Chen leaned forward, voice steady. "You wired $1.2 million to an offshore account 3 days ago. ByteDance cutout. Walk us through it." Vasquez's fingers twitched against the table's edge, the cuffs clinking softly. Trump muttered, "She's the key. Break her and she's playbook. Unravels." Ray nodded, swiping through logs. Flight logs confirm Vancouver layover, then Beijing. But the docs she leaked, our sanction projections, already circulating in Zhongnanhai. She's using them to rally the Politburo, claim we're bluffing on the 35% EV hit, when our models show $67 billion in Chinese losses by Q2. The interrogation played on. Vasquez exhaled sharply, her voice cracking. "It wasn't just money. They promised protection for my family in Miami. The fishing, set up. But the real handler, he's inside. State Department, maybe NSC. I was the pawn." Chen pressed. "Name him." Silence stretched, broken only by the distant echo of footsteps in the hall. Back in the annex, Pompeo burst through the door. Wengs Rain Ko Korkout. Driki or Bemsober Gander Gardi. He tossed a encrypted drive onto the desk. "Intercepts from our asset in Shanghai, sir. Vasquez's leak exposed Operation Firewall, our mirror botnet plan. Now she's preempting. They fortified the Great Firewall with 2.1 million additional nodes, funded by 9.4 billion in emergency CCP allocations. Retaliations live, targeting the port of Los Angeles. Container scans down, 1,200 ships delayed. That's $14 billion in trade stalled overnight. 80,000 jobs on the line." Trump's fist clenched, the wood of the armrest creaking. He paced to the window, where night pressed against the glass, streetlights blurring in the downpour. Victims mounting. Verizon's 5G flicker hit 18 million users. Emergency calls rerouted. 3 hospitals in Texas blacked out for 47 minutes. And now ports? If LA grinds to halt, it's not tech. It's the economy's throat. Ray interjected, his tone grave. "You say pawn, Elena? We show leverage. Your sister in Florida's under watch. Talk or she faces the same scrutiny." On screen, Vasquez's resolve cracked. "It's Blinken." "No, wait, not him. Higher." A whisper from the vice president's office. "They fed me the tariff details to sabotage the counterstrike." The room froze. Trump spun, eyes blazing. "Vice President? Vance?" Pompeo shook his head. Chatter confirms. Anonymous drops to Vasquez match VP briefings on chip tariffs at the Firchefsaras. But proof's thin. $500,000 traced to a DC consultancy linked to his donors. If true, it's treason. Splits the administration wide open. Blinken appeared on a side monitor patched in from an evening gala. His face paled. "Sir, this is disinformation. She's flooding channels. Deepfakes of my signature on the leak orders. EU's buying it. Their cyber chief just froze joint ops, citing US internal rot. 60% of transatlantic data flows now vulnerable." Trump halted, the annex plunging into tense quiet. A coffee mug clattered in the sink as an aide fumbled it. If Vance is clean, we expose the plant. But if not, we audit the top. Pull his comms, financials, everything. And hit back. Sanction Huawei execs, freeze $22 billion in assets. Let Xi feel the squeeze. Ray typed furiously, alerting teams. The interrogation feed showed Vasquez signing a statement, her hand trembling. New facts spilling, the handler's codename, Shadowlink, tied to 14 prior breaches since 2022. Society buzzed outside. Media leaks painted the White House as a sieve, stocks dipping another 4% on fears of deeper compromise. As dawn crept over the Capitol, the rain eased to a drizzle. Pompeo's phone buzzed, a priority ping from Langley. He read it silently, then met Trump's gaze. The mole hunt had unearthed a viper's nest, but the real shock waited in the VP's orbit. In a shadowed quarter of the Hoover building, Vasquez was led away, but her whispered warning to Chen hung unresolved. The handler's not done. Next target's the election grid. November's too late to stop it. The muted glow of antique lamps filtered through the heavy drapes of the vice president's ceremonial office, where shadows danced across walls lined with leather-bound volumes and framed declarations. Vice President J.D. Vance sat behind a mahogany desk, his fingers steepled, a half-smoked cigar smoldering in an ashtray that reeked of aged tobacco. Across from him, Chief of Staff Marcus Hale paced the Persian rug, phone pressed to his ear, his voice a hushed growl. The room's air was stale, thick with the tension of unspoken accusations, broken only by the distant tick of a grandfather clock. "They're closing in," Hale muttered, ending the call with a jab. He tossed the device onto the desk, where it skidded against stack of briefing papers. FBI's pulling your financials, $1.8 million in donor funnels to that consultancy. Vasquez named Shadowlink in her debrief. If Trump connects the dots, it's not just audits, it's impeachment territory. Vance's eyes narrowed, the lines around them deepening in the low light. He exhaled slowly, smoke curling toward the ceiling like a veiled threat. "You say closing in, Marcus? I show misdirection. That money was for campaign ads, anti-China hawks, remember? But Xi's team, they planted the seed. Our own intel confirms Beijing's deepfake ops flooded the leak with my office's metadata. 72% match on the timestamps. If we don't counter, the whole admin fractures, tariffs stall, cyber defenses crumble." Hale stopped pacing, leaning on the desk's edge. His knuckles whitened. "Counter how?" Trump's NSC is mobilizing. Pompeo's pushing for a full institutional sweep. Justice Department warrants on your comms. 14 staffers already questioned. And the numbers? Vasquez's leak cost us. Chinese cyber units rerouted 1.4 terabits to our ports. LA's backlog now at 2,500 containers, $21 billion in goods rotting, 95,000 jobs vaporized in logistics alone. The door creaked open, admitting an aide with the encrypted tablet, her face pale. "Sir, incoming from the Hill. Senate Intelligence Committee demands a closed session tomorrow, 10 a.m. Speakers on the line. If Vance is clean, prove it. Else, they block the $47 billion Cyber Resilience Fund." Vance waved her off, but the weight settled heavier. Outside, the Capitol's dome loomed under. Sodium lamps, a silent witness to the brewing storm. Vance stood, crossing to a sideboard where decanters gleamed. He poured scotch, the liquid glugging softly. "If they block that fund, Xi wins by default. We've got 3.2 million vulnerable endpoints nationwide. Smart grids, voting machines. One push, and it's chaos. 18 states report phishing spikes tied to this clash, 40% from PRC IPs. But here's the play. Leak the deepfake forensics to friendly outlets. Frame it as Beijing's hybrid war. Buy time. Isolate the real mole." Hale shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping. "Time. Trump's alerting the Quad, Australia's ASIO sharing intercepts, Xi's Politburo greenlit a $6.2 billion escalation targeting election infrastructure, 1,200 polling sites flagged for hacks. If it hits November, voter turnout drops 15%, recounts in swing states, your name's poison, reputation shredded, stakes personal now." The vice president sipped, the glass clinking against his teeth. A folder dropped from the desk, pages scattering, charts of tariff impacts projected $112 billion hit to U.S. exports if sanctions falter versus China's $89 billion in seized assets. Personal. This is systemic. Trump's pressure tactics, threatening my clearance. It's fracturing alliances, but we flip it. Anonymous tip to the committee, point to state. Blinken's gala last night, timed with the port hit. Coincidence? Tension coiled tighter. The room's silence broken by Hale's phone vibrating again. Ignored. Vance returned to his chair, the leather sighing under him. The counterattack brewed. Backroom calls to congressional allies, whispers of a rival faction within the White House. But the institutional vice tightened. Federal courts issuing subpoenas, intelligence community buzzing with leaks that painted Vance as the weak link. As the clock struck 2, Hale gathered the scattered papers, his hands steady but eyes wary. The balance shifted. Vance's denials sowed doubt in the ranks, risks mounting with each subpoena, reputation on the line, the cyber war spilling into domestic politics. Trump's team fortified, but the vice president's gambit introduced a new fracture, one that could topple the inner circle. In the quiet aftermath, Vance's secure line rang, a blocked caller from overseas. He answered, voice low. "Shadowlink here, the real play starts now. Plant the virus in the Oval servers, make Trump the fall guy." The line went dead, leaving the room in stunned hush, the betrayal's blade now aimed at the heart of power. The low rumble of thunder echoed through the reinforced corridors of the Pentagon's National Military Command Center, where banks of screens flickered with encrypted data streams under the glare of overhead LEDs. President Donald Trump strode into the chamber, flanked by Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley, whose uniform creased slightly at the shoulders from hours of huddling over maps. The air was cool and metallic, laced with the ozone scent of humming, servers, and the faint bitterness of machine oil from a nearby printer. Analysts in headsets murmured coordinates, their voices a subdued chorus against the room's vast hum. "Give me the board," Trump said, settling into a high-backed chair at the central console. Milley activated a holographic display, projecting a web of glowing nodes across the Pacific, red for compromised, blue for secure. Cyberfront's heating up, Mr. President. She's escalated 4.7 terabits per second, now hammering our undersea cables. Hawaii's relay station, key to 60% of trans-Pacific traffic, down for 3 hours. That's 28 billion in delayed shipments, 120,000 containers adrift off Guam. Casualties, 0 direct, but 2.1 million households in the Midwest, blacked out from grid overload. Trump's gaze hardened on the map, where a pulsing alert marked the White House servers. Vance's mess, that call he took, Shadowlink. If it's him, he's handed Xi the keys. Pompeo, entering with a steaming mug, set it down with a thud. "We've isolated the breach attempt. Malware payload aimed at your schedule files disguised as a routine update. Traced to a VPN in Hong Kong, but the code signature matches Vasquez's leak. $3.4 million more funneled through Vance's donor network. He's denying, but the Senate's briefing just wrapped. 52% of the committee now questioning his loyalty. The room tensed as Blinken patched in via video link. His backdrop the fog-shrouded windows of the State Department. "International pressure's mounting, sir. Xi's ambassador to the UN just tabled a resolution, accusing us of digital imperialism. Backed by 14 nations, including Brazil. If it passes, our Quad alliance fractures. India's holding $16 billion in Chinese debt, and they're waffling on joint cyber drills. Meanwhile, their retaliation, frozen $41 billion U.S. ag exports. Soybeans rotting in silos. 85,000 farmers facing bankruptcy." Milley tapped the display, zooming to a cluster of icons over the South China Sea. "You say pressure, Tony? We show teeth. Navy's deploying the Carrier Strike Group, USS Reagan, 90 aircraft, 5,000 sailors. Blockade prep on Malacca Strait cuts 40% of China's oil imports. But risks, their hypersonic tests ramped up. 12 launches this week, 85% success rate. 1 misfire, and it's hot war. 2,400 U.S. troops in the region, now on high alert." Trump leaned forward, his pen clicking rhythmically against the console. Click, pause, click. The sound cut the heavy silence like a metronome. "Vance wants to play both sides? Fine. I want his office swept. Every device, every call log, and Counterstrike flood their state media with the mole evidence. Let the world see the $9.1 billion CCP slush fund for hacks. But hold the blockade. Threaten it." Xi blinks first. Pompeo nodded, but his eyes flicked to a side monitor, a secure chat from the intelligence community. "Sir, higher authorities involved. CIA Director Burns just flagged. European intel sharing a tip. Shadowlink isn't. Solo. Ties to a rogue element in the NSC, possibly feeding C election hacks. 1-800 polling machines in battleground states probe last night. If it leaks, public trust craters. Voter turnout projected down 22%. The president stood, the chair scraping back sharply. Milley exhaled loudly, rubbing his jaw. Threats layered on. Institutional probes into Vance's circle, with justice issuing 27 subpoenas by noon, staffers scattering, reputations fracturing. The stakes surged beyond tariffs. Now it was the Republic's digital spine, with 67 million online users still reeling from the Cloudflare cascade, economies teetering on the edge of abyss. As the thunder rolled closer, vibrating the chamber walls, Blinken cleared his throat on screen. One more thing, Mr. President. Xi's proposing backroom talks. Neutral ground, Singapore. But our intercepts say it's a trap. Plant more moles during the meet. Trump's face set like stone, the room holding its breath. The invitation dangled like a poisoned olive branch, but refusing it could ignite the powder keg. In the pause, a junior analyst's console beeped. An incoming decrypt from Beijing. Pompeo read it aloud, voice dropping. The talks are on, but Vance is already en route. Unofficial channel. The betrayal deepened, pulling the administration into a vortex where allies turned adversaries overnight. The humid haze of Singapore's diplomatic enclave clung to the air outside the glass-walled conference suite, where air-conditioned chill battled the tropical night. Vice President J.D. Vance arrived under the cover of darkness, his motorcade slipping through checkpoints manned by stern Singaporean guards. Inside the suite, overlooking the marina's twinkling lights, he met Ambassador Wei Feng, Xi Jinping's envoy, whose silk tie gleamed under recessed spotlights. The room smelled of jasmine tea and polished teak, a deceptive calm masking the undercurrent of steel. Vance sat across the low table, his briefcase snapping open with a decisive click. "You reached out, let's cut the pleasantries. Shadowlink's assets confirm your cyber commands holding $5.6 billion in U.S. tech patents as leverage. Release them or the blockade drops. Malacca Strait locked, your oil imports halved to 2.1 million barrels daily." Wei's smile was thin. His fingers steepled over a jade coaster. He slid a dossier forward, pages whispering across the surface. The ambassador's voice was smooth, accented English precise. "You say leverage, Mr. Vice President? We show necessity. Your president's tariffs, 25% on semiconductors, cost us $34 billion in Q3 exports. Cloudflare was a warning. 2.8 million sites restored, but our probe revealed your backups. 1.7 petabytes of vulnerabilities. Beijing's offer, joint AI standards, shared firewalls, refuse, and election probes escalate. 3,400 machines in Ohio and Pennsylvania now compromised, turnout risks dropping 18%. Vance's jaw tightened, the sweet silence broken by the distant hum of a fairy horn. He flipped through the dossier. Satellite photos of U.S. carriers steaming toward the strait, annotated with PLA response vectors, 12 missile batteries activated, 92% accuracy in simulations. Xi's playing with fire. Our NSC sweep uncovered your funding trail. 7.2 billion serviço botnet farms in Macau. If Trump greenlights the counter, your great firewall cracks 450 million users offline. Economy stalls at 4.1% GDP hit. Wei leaned back, pouring tea with deliberate slowness, steam rising like a veil. Outside, lightning flashed over the harbor, illuminating the skyline in stark white. Threats. Your own house divides. Intercepts show Pompeo's team auditing your calls. 27 subpoenas served today. One leak from here, and your unofficial trip becomes treason. But alliance possible. We expose Blinken's deepfake ring. $2.9 million in European bribes to sway the UN vote. Together, we isolate Trump. The vice president paused, his pen tapping the table. Tap, pause, tap, a rhythm echoing his racing thoughts. The backroom negotiation teetered. Vance's gambit to broker peace clashed with Trump's hardline, but Wei's intel sowed fresh doubt. Blinken's alleged ties, if true, could fracture the State Department, redirecting blame and buying time. Stakes ballooned. Global markets dipped 6% on blockade fears. 210,000 U.S. jobs in flux from port delays. The cyber war now ensnaring electoral integrity. Vance exhaled sharply, closing the briefcase. If your intel checks, we talk terms, but no more probes, halt the election hacks, or Singapore's neutrality ends in flames. Wei nodded, but his eyes gleamed with calculation. The meeting stretched into the pre-dawn hours, the suite's air growing heavier with each concession floated and withdrawn. Institutional pressure mounted back home. Justice Department warrants expanding to 41, whispers of impeachment circling the VP's orbit like vultures. As Vance rose to leave, his phone vibrated, a secure ping from Washington. He glanced at Wei, then stepped to the balcony, rain pattering on the awning. The message from Pompeo was stark. Stand down. Trump's ordering your recall, but we've got proof. Your meeting's live streamed to Beijing. She's trap-sprung. The vice president's face drained of color, the negotiation revealed as a snare, pulling him and the administration deeper into the abyss where personal survival collided with national security. The stark fluorescence of the White House Situation Room buzzed like a swarm, illuminating the faces of a dozen top officials gathered around the elongated oak table. President Donald Trump occupied the head, his shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows, a vein pulsing at his temple as he stared at the central monitor. National Security Advisor Mike Pompeo stood beside him, arms crossed, while FBI Director Christopher Wray relayed the latest from a secure line, his voice tinny through the speakers. The air was thick with recirculated staleness, undercut by the sharp tang of whiteboard markers from hasty annotations on a nearby wall. Live stream confirmed, Wray said, pulling up a split-screen feed. Vance in Singapore, his back to the camera, gesturing sharply at Ambassador Wei. A secondary view from a Beijing control room, technicians monitoring in real time. Hacked via a compromised Singaporean router. Xi's tech, no doubt. The whole meet's been broadcast to their Politburo. Vance floated concessions, easing 15% of the chip tariffs in exchange for halting election probes. Our carriers in the strait? He called them provocative bluster. Trump's fist met the table with a thud, sending a water glass wobbling. Bluster? That snake's selling us out. 3,400 polling machines already hit. Ohio's Secretary of State reports 12% failure rate in tests, could disenfranchise 1.2 million voters. And the numbers from this leak? She's gloating. Their media's projecting $52 billion saved if we fold, versus our $79.99 billion in frozen assets evaporating. If Vance is in their pocket, the blockade's DOA, Malacca traffic resumes. Their oil flows at 4.8 million barrels daily. Pompeo leaned in, tapping a tablet to overlay intel briefs. It's worse, sir. The stream captured Vance naming Blinken, accusing him of a $2.9 million bribe ring to EU officials. Deepfake or not, it's poison. States' comms are lighting up, 18 diplomats requesting transfers, alliances cracking. Quad's intel sharing down 40%. India's PM just canceled joint exercises, citing internal U.S. unreliability. She's turning the screw. Fresh DDoS on our election servers, 1.1 terabits targeting 22 states. Turnout projections now at 58%, lowest since 2000. The room stirred, chairs scraping as Blinken entered, his face ashen, coat slung over one arm. He dropped a folder onto the table, pages fanning out. Transaction logs, wire transfers. Disinformation, Mr. President. My office audited clean. Those bribes traced to a CCP front in Luxembourg, 1.7 million laundered through shell NGOs. But Vance's play? It's fracturing everything. Justice has 56 warrants out now. His chief of staff's in custody, confessing to $4.1 million in shadow link payments. Impeachment articles drafting as we speak. Trump paced the room's edge, his footsteps muffled on the carpet but echoing in the charge quiet. A pen clicked in Ray's hand, rapid, nervous, before he stilled it. You say fracture, Tony. We show purge. Recall Vance by force if needed. Air Force 2 grounded at Changi. And the audit, full sweep of his digital footprint. We've got 2.3 terabytes of his emails. One ties him to Huawei consultants. If it breaks public, his rep's ash. Stakes no longer political, but criminal. 45% of congressional Republicans already distancing. Blinken nodded, but his eyes darted to the monitor, where the Singapore feed looped Vance's damning gestures. Outside, the Capitol's night pressed against reinforced windows, sirens wailing faintly from Pennsylvania Avenue. The turning point loomed, institutional machinery grinding into action, with the House Speaker demanding a special session. Reforms floated, from cyber oversight bills to tariff veto powers. Xi's team capitalized, their ambassador leaking the stream to global press. U.S. democracy in cyber crosshairs, self-inflicted. Pompeo interjected, voice low. "One more hit, sir. Intercepts show Xi mobilizing 1,500 cyber operators for a demonstrative strike. New York Fed's transaction hub. If it lands, $3.2 trillion in daily wires halt. Markets freeze for 72 hours. Vance's leak just handed them the blueprint." Trump halted, the room plunging into weighted hush. He sank into his chair, the leather creaking. The audit's net tightened, arrests rippling the cerebral rowdy. Bang see, can see. Go in the reputations shattered, power realigning in the wake of betrayal. No way back now. The clash had metastasized from tech skirmish to constitutional crisis, with the nation's digital arteries exposed and pulsing. As the clock ticked past midnight, Ray's console chimed, an urgent decrypt from Singapore. Pompeo read it aloud, his face paling. Vance isn't returning. He's defected, boarding a PLA chartered jet to Beijing. The real Shadowlink files are with him. The room erupted in murmurs, the point of no return crossed as Trump's inner circle braced for a purge that could redefine the Oval's walls. The sterile glow of the Oval Office's executive desk lamp carved harsh angles across President Donald Trump's face as he hunched over a secure terminal, the room's air heavy with the scent of cooling electronics and lingering cigar smoke. It was just past 3 a.m., the grandfather clock's chime muffled by the thick Persian rug. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stood rigidly nearby, arms folded, while a cadre of NSC aides monitored feeds from a wall of screens, global news tickers scrolling in red. VP Vance defects. U.S. in turmoil. The weight of the night pressed in, broken only by the soft beep of an incoming satellite link. Defected, Trump growled, slamming a fist on the desk, the impact rattling a crystal decanter. That traitor hands Xi the keys to our vault, 2.3 terabytes of emails, sanctioned blueprints, election defenses. Beijing's already parading it. Their state TV claims it proves our democratic hypocrisy, rallying 1.2 billion viewers. Markets? Futures tanked 11% pre-open. Dow projected to shed $4.1 trillion by noon, 2.7 million 401ks gutted overnight. Blinken swiped through his tablet, pulling up a classified decrypt. The jet's en route, PLA escort, landing in 4 hours at a secure strip near Shanghai. Vance is carrying shadow link files, detailed maps of our cyber weak points, including the Fed Hub blueprint. If Xi activates, 3.2 trillion in wires freeze. Naitata Titan, Preet, and Seek and Bank, Korean Kakadro banks, runs in 48 states, unemployment spiking to 7.2% within weeks, and the betrayal's fallout. House impeached him in absentia, 312 to 120 vote. Senate's next, but the damage? Our Quad allies are bailing. Japan's pulling 19 billion brink tech investments, citing instability in BSRLB at Kinsandi Hapab. The door swung open with a hydraulic hiss, admitting Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley, his boots leaving faint mud tracks from the rain-slicked grounds. He dropped a sealed envelope onto the desk, stamped with the Pentagon's eagle. Audit complete, sir. Vance's office yielded 47 hard drives, $8.9 million in undeclared CCP funds traced to his campaign PAC. But the real bomb, a failed extraction op. Our Delta team tailed the jet from Singapore, intercepted mid-air over the South China Sea. Skirmish lasted 12 minutes. 2 F-35s downed, 14 pilots lost. Xi's response? They've seized the wreckage, claiming it as U.S. aggression. Casualties, 2,100 sailors on the Reagan now in crosshairs, straight blockade holding but at 65% effectiveness. Trump rose, pacing to the window where the rose garden lay shrouded in darkness, rain streaking the glass like tears. His breath fogged the pain briefly. Aggression? He lit the fuse. That op was our line in the sand. No more concessions. Now the world's watching. EU's freezing $67 billion in U.S. bonds, sanctions mirroring ours. 40% of transatlantic flights grounded from cyber spillover, 1.8 million travelers stranded. If we don't pivot, the system's cracked. Congress floating emergency cyber laws, but Vance's files could neuter them. Milley exhaled loudly, unfolding a map across the desk, red lines snaking through Pacific routes. You say cracked, Mr. President? We show rupture. The skirmish is the point of no return. PLA's mobilizing 3,500 cyber specialists for a full-spectrum push, targeting NATO grids next. Now 400 endpoints in Europe vulnerable, projected blackouts for 28 million. But domestically? The audits exposed rot. 19 NSC staffers resigning, leaks confirming Vance's handler was a Politburo mole embedded since 2022. No going back. Reforms incoming, or the house burns. Blinken interjected, his voice edged with fatigue. Alliance shift, sir. We've got an unexpected hand. Russia's intel. Yes, Putin tipping us off on Xi's next move. In exchange for easing Ukraine sanctions by 12%. It's a devil's bargain, but it buys leverage. Expose Vance's files as forgeries, reclaim narrative control. Stakes? Global GDP dips 2.4% if this drags. US alone loses $1.9 trillion in trade. 4.2 million jobs evaporated. The room fell into a taut silence, screens flickering with alerts. Xi's ambassador addressing the UN, decrying the failed American incursion. Trump turned from the window, his shadow stretching long. A folder slipped from the desk, pages whispering to the floor. Charts of losses versus gains, the U.S. economy teetering at 1.8% growth projection if unchecked. The turning point solidified. No retreat, only forward into uncharted fracture where betrayals birthed unlikely pacts and the power structure quaked. As dawn's first light pierced the curtains, Milley's radio crackled, a priority from the carrier group. He listened, face grim. Sir, the wreckage. Recovery teams found something. Vance's body aboard, but the files gone. Xi's already decoding, aimed at the heart of DC's grid. The hush deepened, the demonstrative actions echo resounding, sealing the path where empires clashed and none emerged unscathed. The cavernous briefing room in the Capitol's basement thrummed with the low murmur of fluorescent lights and shuffling papers, the air stale and heavy with the residue of hurried takeout, greasy cartons stacked in a corner. President Donald Trump stood at a podium flanked by congressional leaders, his suit jacket unbuttoned, tie askew from a marathon session that had stretched through the night. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer sat to his left, notes splayed before him, while House Speaker Mike Johnson gripped a gavel lightly, his knuckles pale. Outside, dawn broke over the mall, but inside, the weight of reckoning pressed down like an unrelenting fog. Trump cleared his throat. Steady, but laced with gravel. Vance's defection and death ends one chapter, but the files he carried, Xi decoded them in 18 hours. The DC grid strike hit at 4:17 a.m., 2.1 million homes dark. Metro halted, 47 hospitals on generators. Losses, $89 billion in the first wave, 1.3 million jobs projected lost by quarter's end, but we held. Backup protocols from the audit kicked in, limiting the blackout to 6 hours. No full collapse. Schumer leaned forward, tapping a revised bill. The reforms passed today, Mr. President. Cyber Resilience Act, $112 billion allocated. Mandatory audits for all federal comms. AI-driven firewalls on 4,200 endpoints. No more moles like Shadowlink. And the tariffs? Locked at 28% on Chinese tech with carve-outs for allies. EU's back on board. Joint sanctions freezing $156 billion in CCP assets. Global trade realigns, our exports up 14% projected, their GDP shaved by 3.2%. The room nodded, but Johnson interjected, his tone measured. You say held, Chuck? We show scars. Vance's impeachment unanimous. First VP removed in history. His circle? 23 arrests, $14.7 million seized. But the personal toll? Pompeo's resigning. Clean but burned out after the skirmish. Blinken stays, but states purging 41 diplomats tied to the deepfakes. And Xi? His Politburo's fracturing. Leaks show internal audits exposing $23 billion in cyber waste. 3 generals sidelined. Trump paced a step, the carpet muffling his shoes. A projector hummed, displaying charts. Pre-clash economy at 2.1% growth, now stabilized at 1.9%, but with steelier resolve, public approval. 4. Cyber defenses spiking 62%, calls for digital sovereignty echoing from town halls to Tokyo. Consequences ripple. The Quad reforms, shared intel grids, no single-point failure, Russia's tip-off bought us time, but we cut Ukraine aid by 8%. Putin's grinning, but Xi's isolated. 1,800 polling machines fortified. November's secure turnout projected at 68%. The system's tougher. Bipartisan cyber czar appointed, veto-proof. Schumer exhaled, rubbing his eyes. The air conditioner clicked on, stirring papers. World reaction? UN resolution failed 142-7. US narrative won. China's rare earth exports choked at 22% capacity. EVs grounded for 2.4 million units. But domestically, resignations cascade. 17 governors demanding state-level firewalls, tech CEOs testifying on Capitol Hill. The country's sense? Wary, but awakened. Polls show 71% view this as a pivot to American primacy, not vulnerability. Trump halted, gripping the podium. The room fell quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic filtering through vents. Folders lay open, comparison stark. U.S. losses at $341 billion versus China's $467 billion. Victims tallied at 5.2 million offline hours, but resilience forged in the fire. Key figures reshaped. Trump unbowed, his grip on power ironclad. Xi diminished, his shadow war backfiring into domestic purges. Vance a ghost, broken and vanished. Johnson rapped the gavel once, sealing the session. New rules, transparency mandates, no more backrooms. The structure bends but doesn't break. Attendees rose, handshakes crisp, the tension easing into resolve. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over monuments that now symbolized not just endurance, but reinvention. As the doors swung open to the corridor's brighter light, Trump's phone buzzed, a final decrypt from Beijing. He read it silently, a faint smile cracking his face. Xi's inner circle had turned, a quiet coup brewing. The tech clashes echo toppling thrones across the Pacific. The power game had changed. America stood taller, its digital veins armored. The nation's self-image forged anew in the crucible of betrayal and triumph.